Hello and welcome back to Israel with Aline. We are in Jerusalem and today we are going to take a journey through the history of the Jerusalem temple. Let's start with Abraham, go through Solomon and also King Herod. We will talk about the first, second and third temple of Jerusalem, and we got special access to film inside the Holy of Holies, the place where the Ark of the Covenant was located. So, if you are ready, let's get started. Let's start with the book of Genesis, when God orders Abraham to take his beloved son Isaac and go to the land of Moriah and climb the mountain to sacrifice him. But at the time of the sacrifice, an angel of the Lord comes and interrupts Abraham, and God sends a lamb to be sacrificed in his place. So on Mount Moriah, in the place that is behind me now, is where God will bless Abraham, his descendants, and all the peoples of the earth. And a few centuries later, King David conquers the city of Jerusalem and buys this land called the threshing floor of Araunah, but he will not be allowed to build the temple. Instead, his son, King Solomon, will build the temple. And so the first temple will be built in the year 957 before Christ. It was a fabulous and colossal temple, built with the best building materials of the time. For example, the cedar of Lebanon. And it was divided into zones, and the main place right in the center of the temple was called the Kodesh HaKodeshim, the Holy of Holies. And it was on top of Mount Moriah Peak, and on it the Ark of the Covenant. The Aron Abrit, or as we call it in English, the Ark of the Covenant, it was built in the times of Moses. It was made of wood and covered in gold, and inside it were kept the tablets of the law. And in the Holy of Holies, only the high priest could enter, and only one day a year, on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the most sacred day of the Jewish calendar. And on that day he wore a special garment with bells, and according to Jewish tradition, he had a rope tied to his ankle. Ankle? Why? Because if he were to die inside the Holy of Holies, no one could enter to remove him. And that's why the rope tied to the ankle, in case that happened, he could be pulled out. And also the bells helped, because at the moment of prayer, he moved and you could hear the bells ringing. And the most amazing thing is that in the archaeological excavations of the city of David, which is very close to where we are, one of these gold bells was found. I will put it now in the addition for you to see. And after more than 400 years, the Babylonians will come under the command of Nebuchadnezzar and destroy the temple of Jerusalem and loot it. And among the things that will disappear is the Ark of the Covenant. But what happened to it? In the second book of Kings, it is told about the looting of the temple of Jerusalem, and there is a list of the objects taken to Babylon. But what is not on that list? The Ark of the Covenant. So we already know one thing, that it probably didn't go to Babylon. And there are some theories about where the Ark of the Covenant might be. One of these theories is written in the second book of Maccabees, which is a deuterocanonical book. What does this mean? That it is a book accepted by Judaism, but it is not within the Hebrew Bible. And in this book it is written that the prophet Jeremiah took the ark and hid it on Mount Nebo, which is in Jordan today. And according to the Talmud, which is one of the main Jewish books, the ark never left Jerusalem, but was buried under the Ezrat Etzim, which was part of the Jerusalem temple itself, meaning literally behind this wall, which today we do not have access to the other side, but it is a theory that the ark may be here in this place. Another theory is, according to the Kebra Nagas book, which is a sacred book for the Ethiopian church, and according to this book, the true ark was taken to Ethiopia, and where it is kept to this day in the city of Aksum. And there are even more minor theories, but the reality is that we don't know where the Ark of the Covenant is today. And after 70 years in ruins, the Temple of Jerusalem will finally be rebuilt. The Jews who are returning from exile in Babylon built the second Temple of Jerusalem with tools like these that we are seeing. And with a lot of effort, they will rebuild the Temple of Jerusalem, despite this temple being much simpler than Solomon's temple. And this temple that they are going to build will stand for 500 years until the arrival of King Herod the Great. He will expand and restore the Temple of Jerusalem, and I mean really expand. He will transform the Temple of Jerusalem into one of the largest buildings of the time, and we can already see the tip of it here from our side. Just to give you an idea of the size of the temple, its side was 527 yards, which means almost half a kilometer, and the height was 50 yards, which would be a 15-story building today. But if we consider the entire building from its base, it would be a 21-story building this more than 2,000 years ago. And to do this, King Herod, he turns Mount Moriah into a large platform. He will build 4 gigantic walls around and raise the floor. And in the central part was the temple itself. And I want you now to look behind me, and we can see 2 of these walls. This is the south wall and this is the western wall. The western wall is nowadays also known as the Wailing Wall. And Herod's temple, it was the largest of the versions of the Jerusalem temple, but despite this, it will be the one that will last the least time. And in the year 70 AD, less than 100 years after its construction, it will be destroyed and looted by the Romans. The pile of stones that we are seeing there literally are the remains of the Jerusalem temple. The Romans will destroy and throw the stones from top to bottom. And they have been standing here in the same place since the year 70. And to celebrate the destruction of Judea, the Romans go and build an arch called the Arch of Titus in Rome, which exists to this day. And among the designs that we see here carved on this arch, we can clearly see the Roman soldiers looting the temple and taking the utensils to Rome. And among them, we can see here the golden menorah, the candelabrum that was used to illuminate the Temple of Jerusalem. And the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem will shake the Jewish world, and the people of Israel will go into mourning. The destruction of the first and second Temple of Jerusalem fall on the same date in the Jewish calendar, on the 9th day of Av, and to this day, every year on this date, a national day of fasting and mourning for the Temple of Jerusalem is observed. When the Romans destroy the Temple of Jerusalem, the temple is so large, so colossal, that they can't destroy the entire temple. They indeed destroy all the central part, the entire Holy of Holies area, but this gigantic platform that Herod had built, they have no way to destroy all of it. And this platform continues to exist to this day, and we can clearly see this platform in the aerial images here. Compare its size to the size of the other houses in the rest of the city. And we're going to go up this bridge now to the Temple Mount and see it from above and see what the place looks like today. Now that we're going up to the Temple Mount, there are dress code rules up there because of the Muslims. So women have to wear long sleeves. And despite today's heat, I'm going to put on my coat. So now that I'm prepared, let's go up together. This is the only entrance to the Temple Mount allowed for non-Muslims. What I like most about this climb is looking down and seeing the Western Wall from above. Remember that the Western Wall, it is part of the structure of the Jerusalem Temple, more specifically one of these 4 large outer walls that were built by Herod. Well, they also gave me this skirt to put on, at least it's matching with the coat today. But we are now walking on top of this platform, and we are going to learn more about the history of this place. And this is going to be the temple that Jesus knew, and there are several passages of him up here. But a specific passage I want to talk about and show you, and it happened over there at that end. And this is the pinnacle of the temple, which is the southeast corner of this large platform. And here one of Jesus' temptations took place, as it is written in the book of Matthew chapter 4. Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. And he said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here. For it is written that his angels will give orders concerning you and will take you in their hands." And now that we look down, folks, see the height of this place where we are. But let's get back to talking about the Temple Mount. What happened to it after the destruction by the Romans almost 2,000 years ago? And this place will be abandoned for centuries until the year 638, when Islam conquers Jerusalem, and they will make two main constructions here. One of them is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in the world for Muslims. And this place is sacred to Islam because they believe that Muhammad came here on his night journey riding an animal called El-Burak. Access to this place is limited to Muslims, so we are having the privilege today to be able to film here inside, and we will explain in a little while why non-Muslims cannot enter here. And the second building they are going to build is the Dome of the Rock, which is also called the Golden Dome. And look how amazing the name, the Dome of the Rock, it already tells us what it is. It is a dome built on top of a rock. This rock is literally the peak of Mount Moriah, the place of the Holy of Holies, the place where Abraham went to make the sacrifice of his son Isaac. So this means that the Holy of Holies still exists and it remains visible to this day. The issue is that access to the site is restricted. As we mentioned before, access is only allowed to those who are Muslim. And here I need to explain the complicated situation of this place. We are in Israel, in Jerusalem, but in 1967 an agreement was made between the Israeli government and the local Muslim authorities. The agreement states that the place belongs to Israel. However, the religious control is Muslim, and they would allow the entry of all people, including into the Dome of the Rock. However, the right to pray and worship is reserved for Muslims. Unfortunately, this is not the reality of the place, and currently entry is restricted to Muslims. But today we are going to have special access to be able to film and show this amazing place to you. So let's go! You enter here barefoot. You can also see that the entire floor is covered with rugs. And the architecture of the place is beautiful. Every detail here is decorated. And remember that this building is 1,300 years old. And in the center of it, we are now going to get closer and we will see what is called the foundation stone, the Holy of Holies, the place of sacrifice, or almost sacrifice of Isaac. And I have a surprise for you. Underneath this place, we are now going to go down, and it has an underground part of the Holy of Holies. Not many people know this, but it's like a cave that is part natural and part man-made. So this is the deepest, most central part of the Holy of Holies that exists. And it is also known as the Well of Souls. Subtitle Adriana Zanotto. But let's now descend from the Temple Mount. Let's descend from this platform to continue our tour. And now let's talk about the third temple of Jerusalem. But before I say what is happening, I want to tell you what is not happening. There's a lot of fake news going around on the internet, and many of them are related to the third temple of Jerusalem. For example, this construction here being advertised as the construction of the third temple of Jerusalem, and it's not. We are near the temple, but this construction has absolutely nothing to do with it. In fact, this is a construction of a future museum that is being built here. Having said that, folks, be careful with the fake news, but now it's time to find out what is indeed being done for the third temple of Jerusalem. And for that, we are now going to go up to the old city neighborhood of Jerusalem, to the Jewish quarter. Let's go. Behind me, we see the Temple Institute, which is a private organization, meaning it is not connected to the government of Israel. And what do? They study and teach about the first and second temple of Jerusalem, and they hope for the creation of the third temple, and that's why they are making the utensils that will be placed inside the third temple of Jerusalem, among them the priest's clothes, the trumpets, and much more. And the Temple Institute also recreated the menorah, which was the 7-branched candelabrum that was inside the Temple of Jerusalem, as we can see it here. Oil was placed on top and it was used to illuminate the temple. As we saw in the Arch of Titus, the original was taken to Rome, but this replica, like all the replicas from the Temple Institute, are made according to biblical instructions, and this includes the material of the menorah. It is made of gold, folks. It's 94.79 pounds of gold, and it cost over $1 million to make. For now, it is on display here in the heart of the Jewish quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. Another important point of the temple are the Levites and the Cohen. The Levites are one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they were in charge in the Jerusalem temple of maintenance, singing psalms, and other services. And the Cohen are a family within the tribe of Levi, and they are the family that descend from Aaron, the first Cohen or first priest of the Jerusalem temple. And I mentioned to you in other videos that my maternal family are also Cohen, meaning my maternal family are descendants of the priests of the Jerusalem temple. So we know to this day who the Levites and who the Cohen are, and they will be able to be called to the third Jerusalem temple. And now, with all that said, has the construction of the temple itself, the construction of the third temple, already begun? And the answer is no. Why? Because according to most Jews, the construction of the third temple can only begin on the day of the Messiah's arrival. And this is also based on what happened for the reconstruction of the second temple in Jerusalem, which only began to be rebuilt with the help of divine intervention and the prophets Haggai, Malachi, and Zechariah. In summary of history, the construction of the third temple of Jerusalem itself has not yet begun, but the utensils of the time are practically all ready. The subject of the Jerusalem temple is a gigantic and fascinating one. So if you want to see more about it, don't forget to comment on what you want to know, archaeological findings, stories, more about the Jerusalem temple. If you want to see the Temple Institute, there is so much cool stuff to talk about. But to not miss any of this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like. Thank you very much for watching. A kiss, shalom, and see you next time.